Peace. Welcome to another edition of Community Forum. This is called In the Moment. And I told y'all, I want y'all to check this out. Put your comments below. Please check the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. Appreciate your support. Share it with someone you know. And hit the notification bell. Check this out.
But this is about keeping, Make America, this hat? Make America white again. They want to make sure that certain people are counted. It's really disgraceful. And it's not what our founders had in mind. The Supreme Court did not rule in their favor.
Make America great. Make it white.
You never know where the breakthrough is going to happen. You just got to keep pursuing it until you get the breakthrough.
Goals for the Traditionalist Worker Party are to be able to create a real third party, a political alternative for white working and middle class families, to be able to give us representation on the state and local level. We want to be able to build an independence movement where one day that our people can be able to be sovereign over our own land and our own future.
Right now, white people are really frightened. If you don't understand the destruction of Planned Parenthood offices, and you don't understand the wall that we're going to build on the southern border of the United States, you haven't read the book, The Birth Dearth by Ben Wattenberg. Ben Wattenberg was a brilliant Jewish man who was a member of the American Enterprise Institute. And he wrote a book, the first paragraph of which says, "The main problem confronting the United States today is there aren't enough white babies being born in this country." He was an advisor to presidents of the United States. He wrote the book in 1987. He says if we don't change this and change it rapidly, white people will lose their numerical majority in this country, and this will no longer be a white man's land. Now, I'm not misrepresenting this. I'm telling you almost exactly what he says. He says there are three things we can do to solve this. Number one, we could pay women to have babies, as they have been doing in Western European nations for years. Then he says, and these are his words, not mine, unfortunately, we would have to pay women of all colors to have babies, so we don't want to do that. He says the second thing we could do is increase the number of legal immigrants that are allowed into this country every year. Then once again he says, unfortunately, the vast majority of those wanting to come to this country today are people of color, so we don't want to do that. The third thing he says, and women had better pay attention to this, 60% of the fetuses that are aborted every year are white. If we could keep that 60% alive, that would solve our birth dearth. Does that sound like racism to you?
Can you talk a little bit about the trauma associated with?
The trauma associated with it? Yeah. One of the main traumas is it tells white people that they are superior because of the lack of melanin in their skin. And then they find out suddenly that we've got a black president. That's traumatic. That's where the trauma is. Living a lie, finding out the truth is traumatic. Finding out now, recently, that within 30 years, white people will be in the numerical minority in this country is going to be traumatic. White people are scared to death right now, particularly white males. They're scared to death that they are going to lose their power in the future. And they are.
Like I said, if this is not about survival of a race, I don't know what is. This whole Roe versus Wade thing, I'm not saying it. I want you to check out what they say.
Have you heard of the book, The Birth Dearth? Go check it out, because this book pretty much sums up what's happening in the United States today. It was written in 1987 by a man named Ben Wattenberg. I'm going to read a quote from the book, which basically sums it up and sums up what is happening in our world today. Actually, the United States. Okay. The major problem confronting the United States today is there aren't enough white babies being born. If we don't do something about this and do it now, white people will be the numerical minority, and we will no longer be a white man's land. Quote, unquote. So he had three options for what we could do to add more white babies into this world. And the first option was to pay women to make babies. Okay, a little Handmaid's Tale here, although those women weren't getting paid, were they? But he does go on to say that that plan is actually untenable because, and I quote, we would have to pay women of all colors to have babies. Damn. So there's that. His second option was that we have more immigration. We allow more people to come into this country. But, oh, you guessed it, can't do that either. Why? Too many people of color coming into the country. That doesn't add white babies to our population, does it? Now, his third thing that he said was this. The third thing we could do is remember that 60% of the fetuses that are aborted every year are white. If we could keep that 60% of life alive, that would solve our birth dearth. No, Ben, that would not solve the birth dearth. That would solve the white baby dearth. People, this is some scary fucking shit that's coming to life right now. It's coming to life in almost every single state in this country. There's a guy in Arizona, a member of the GOP, of course, who wants to ban condoms. There are several other GOPers in several other states that have said this morning that they want to ban contraception altogether. So women will now become baby-making machines. Will either get paid or not. It'll be mandated. Abortions are going to be completely 100% illegal. So people will be forced to bring their babies to term and put them up for adoption, thus solving the white man's birth dearth.
In the United States, a new survey by the country's Census Bureau provides some important insights into the changing racial makeup of the country. And the survey was unveiled on Thursday. It has triggered quite a storm among American conservatives. Here's why. The survey says that America's white population remains the largest ethnic group in the country, but it has shrunk by almost 9% over the last decade. It now accounts for almost 58% of the US population. It's the lowest share on record. To put things in perspective, the number of non-Hispanic white people in the US was 196 million in 2010, a little more than 63% of the total American population. In 2020, that figure shrank to 191 million. It now constitutes 57.8% of the US population. This has apparently happened for the first time in American history. The survey further says that white Americans are no longer the dominant group in at least 4 places: Hawaii, New Mexico, District of Columbia, and California, America's most populous state. In fact, the steepest fall has happened here. Between 2010 and 2020, the white population in California has dropped from 40% to 34%. During the same period, the Hispanics, people from Spanish-speaking countries, became the largest racial group. They grew from a little over 37% to more than 39% over the decade. The conservatives say that these figures are alarming, that they represent a threat to white identity in the US. But the liberals say this only proves that the US has become more diverse than ever. They say the white population is not shrinking, but shifting to multiracial identities, to people who identify themselves as belonging to 2 or more races. Let's look at some more figures. According to the survey, the number of people who identify themselves as multiracial has almost tripled. From 9 million in 2010, the figure has gone to 33.8 million in 2020. They now account for 10% of the US overall. That's a rise of at least 276%. But does the growing diversity mean inclusivity? Far from it. Racism in the US is still on the rise, and you don't need any surveys to prove this. There are enough and more figures. But for the sake of perspective, let me give you this one. According to an April 2021 survey, this year's survey, April, America is among the 10 worst countries for racial equality, 10 worst in the world. A total of 78 countries were assessed. The US found itself on the 69th spot, finishing lower than China. According to another survey by the Northwestern University in Chicago on racism in America, 70% of Black Americans said they continue to face racism. So did 45% Asians living in America and 25% Hispanics. What do all these figures tell you? That racism continues to be a reality in an America that likes to call itself multiracial. Is it because the white population in the US is shrinking? Is it because white Americans feel threatened that they will soon be in minority? Is it because they feel they will lose their identity? There are no easy answers to this question. It's got a lot to do with politics as well. All we can say is that the US has never been this polarized.
These trends are very hard to absorb.
The demographic winter is an old argument, basically that European white Christian West is not having enough babies to replace its old and it's dying. And that's kind of an old argument, but it's being repurposed now by an international coalition of the religious right, hoping to restore something they call the natural family, which is the patriarchal family, the family where the mother stays at home and raises a large family of children. They're promoting it through a lot of different ways. They're promoting it through a new documentary that was released this week called Demographic Winter, The Decline of the Human Family.
The only way you can sort of preserve the theory is to say, well, certain kinds of human beings are on the way to extinction.
Now we have 40 years of social science that makes it absolutely clear that the deterioration of marriage, the encouragement of sexuality outside of marriage is just not good for society, women, children, or men.
I think their real agenda, more than necessarily a concern for Europe, is a concern with gaining an entry for their ideology into European politics. Right now they're really tapping into a lot of anxiety that Europeans are feeling about different cultural conflicts that are occurring because of different immigrant populations. Two examples really spring to mind, Italy and Russia, which have both promoted these different birth initiatives with prizes ranging from refrigerators and free cars if you conceive a patriot for the country, to actual payouts ranging from $1,000 to almost $10,000. Yes, there are demographic shifts, yes.
No, now let me just give you a little background. This paper was written approximately in 1969 and presented in 1970. It was written for a group of black psychiatrists who were looking at racism. Yeah. It was also written because as a psychiatrist and working in a hospital trying to treat black people and white people, but recognizing that the majority of the problems that black patients had in a psychiatric hospital, when you took a history, you would run smack into racism. So I knew I had to understand racism to help solve the mental health problems of black people. So out of my brain computer, putting in the question, why? Why do we see this behavior? Why have we seen it for hundreds of years? So I thought about these two things, basically two facts, that even though the white population says that people of color are minorities, that it is the white population that is the minority on the planet.
That's the reality you're saying.
That's the reality.
Yeah.
That in spite of the fact that black people, non-white people have heard over and over again, you're genetically inferior because you are non-white. That in reality, white skin is a genetic recessive status, not as said by Francis Wilson. You see, meaning that if
you and I were to have a baby, the baby would have color, and you make the contribution and I don't.
That white plus colored. Well, wait a minute. It's not Francis Wilson that is concerned about the disappearance of white. Ben Wattenberg just wrote a book, The Birth Dearth. There have been multiple articles in the newspaper talking about the decline of Western populations.
Yeah, here's the Washington Post, just to name one. We are a depopulation bomb, the withering of the Western world. Here, incidentally, this was the percentage of the West's population in 1900, the turn of this century, about 30%. This is where we'll be less than 10% in the year 2075. Here's where we are about today, 15. So we're not having babies.
So whites are not having babies, and there is the concern about white genetic annihilation. In other words, I look at, this is Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday holiday, and people will say, well, here's a man who talked about love. Yeah. Why was he killed? And I say that the deeper logic is, what if all black and white people and non-white people and white people love? What would happen to white people? White would disappear. You see, just mix all of the people on the planet.
Thank you for watching Community Forum. Appreciate your support. Don't forget, subscribe, hit the notification bell, check the like button, and share with someone you know. Peace, be safe, I'm out.